Pay attention to this woman in the elevator. She's laughing, fixing her son's collar, just a normal mom on a normal Friday morning. 3 hours from now, that same little boy will find her body in the bathroom. Black trash bag over her head, duct tape around her neck. Police called it suicide, case closed. But her mother knew the truth, and for 14 months, she investigated her daughter's murder alone until she got the killer to confess on tape. This is the story of April Lynn Holt. April Lynn Holt was born July 6th, 1994 in Florida. Her mother, Jamie, was still a teenager. The family later moved to Tennessee, settling in a Nashville suburb where April grew up. Everyone who knew April described her the same way: light. She was the person who walked into a room and made it warmer. Even when things were bad, she couldn't help but smile. She worked as a lash technician, ran her own studio, and built a social media presence. By summer 2023, she had nearly 200,000 TikTok followers. Her content was about positivity, self-improvement, spirituality. She was deeply religious, worked at her mother's church, and dreamed of expanding her ministry work. At 17, April got pregnant. Her parents officially adopted the baby girl named Serenity. Years later, when April was married and established, she had a son named Denzel. He became the center of her world. Donovan Holt came into April's life long before he became her husband. They met as teenagers, started as friends, then began dating around 2014. They got married and had Denzel. On TikTok, April told their story like a fairy tale. Friends who became best friends, who became lovers, who became husband and wife. But TikTok was the highlight reel. Behind the scenes, things were different. Jamie would later describe her daughter's relationship with Donovan as unstable. They broke up and got back together constantly. Donovan had an obsession with April. When she tried to leave, he'd sleep outside her apartment door. He isolated her from family. There were financial issues, lies about bills being paid when they weren't. In October 2021, April and Donovan announced they were divorcing, but they never finalized it. They lived apart for 3 years, then got back together. By spring 2023, something broke for good. In April, she posted a video unlike her usual content. No makeup, no smile. She'd torn out her own eyelashes during a nervous breakdown the night before. She admitted she was depressed, overwhelmed. 2 months later, she filed for divorce. For real this time. In mid-July 2023, April made her final decision. She was leaving Donovan forever. She told her mother this time was different. She wasn't backing down. One detail Jamie noticed later: a week before April's death, Donovan pawned her wedding ring. Not his, hers, without her permission. April didn't know. She was preparing for her new life. Buying school supplies for Denzel, planning to homeschool him, making plans to see Barbie with her mom, looking forward, not back. Then came July 28th, Friday morning. April woke early, made coffee, journaled like she did every morning. At 8:47, the elevator camera captured her and Denzel heading down. She's laughing, adjusting his collar. A normal morning. At 12:59 p.m., April texted her mother about Denzel's game that evening and plans for church. Jamie read it after her shower and decided to reply later. She didn't know it was April's last message. The next 2 hours are a black box. The only witness was a 7-year-old boy. Here's what Denzel later told his grandmother. His parents went into the bathroom. He heard them arguing, loud, angry. He lay down and tried to look under the door. First, he saw 2 pairs of feet. Then he looked again. This time, he saw his mom on the floor. Denzel got scared and ran to his room. After a while, his dad came out, made him lunch, steak and broccoli, got him dressed. Then his dad said, "Go check on mom. She's been in the shower a long time." Denzel went to the bathroom. The door was locked. He unlocked it and saw what will haunt him for the rest of his life. His mother lay in the shower, a black trash bag over her head, taped to her neck with silver duct tape. She wasn't moving. Donovan called 911. Paramedics arrived. April was barely alive. They rushed her to Southern Hills Hospital. Jamie got a call from Donovan. April isn't breathing. They're taking her to the hospital. His voice was strange, she'd later recall. Panicked, but wrong somehow. Not the panic you'd expect from a husband whose wife is dying. Jamie raced to the hospital. When she arrived, April was on life support. Jamie saw her daughter and immediately knew something was wrong. Bruises on her neck, red dots on her cheeks, burst capillaries, marks on her ankles, a wound on her thigh. This didn't look like an accident, it looked like violence. She looked at Donovan. He sat in the corner, head in hands, rocking back and forth, not crying, not asking doctors questions, just rocking. Jamie asked what happened. Donovan said something about April acting strange that morning, but he didn't mention the bag. 6 hours passed before Jamie learned about the bag on her daughter's head. 6 hours, and she heard it from doctors, not Donovan. During those 6 hours, Donovan left the hospital multiple times to return to the apartment. Why? He never explained. Police hadn't even been called yet. Jamie had to call them herself when she learned about the bag. By then, Donovan had been back to the apartment at least 3 times, alone, unwitnessed. April remained on life support for 3 days. On July 31st, 2023, April Lynn Holt was pronounced dead. She was 29 years old. Cause of death, asphyxiation. She left behind 2 children, 11-year-old Serenity and 7-year-old Denzel. In November 2023, the family received the official ruling. Cause of death, asphyxiation. Manner of death, suicide. April Lynn Holt, according to Nashville police, killed herself. Put a trash bag on her own head, taped it to her own neck, lay down in the shower, and suffocated. Case closed. Jamie sat in the detective's office, listening to this verdict. She looked at the people in uniform telling her that her daughter chose death, that there were no signs of foul play, no grounds to suspect anyone. She stood up, looked at them, and said, "I'm not done. I'm going to keep investigating." Then she walked out. Jamie knew her daughter, knew her for 29 years, and she knew April couldn't have done this herself. First, the kids. April adored her children. She'd just decided to homeschool Denzel. She was buying school supplies 3 days before she died. People planning to end their lives don't buy notebooks for their kids. Second, her faith. April was deeply religious, worked at church. For someone with that belief, suicide wasn't an option. It was unthinkable. Third, the plans. The day she died, April was texting about movies, church, her son's game. She was thinking about tomorrow, about next week. Fourth, the divorce. April was finally leaving Donovan. After years of misery, she'd made the decision. This was a moment of liberation, not despair. And fifth, the method. A trash bag taped to her neck? Jamie had never heard of anyone choosing that voluntarily. It looked like something else, like evidence destruction, like staging. But Nashville police wouldn't listen. Jamie later obtained case files and discovered something shocking. The detective who handled the case attended April's autopsy and told the medical examiners a backstory he'd invented. He claimed April abused alcohol and marijuana. This was false. He said there were no signs of struggle, yet the autopsy report clearly documented bruises on her neck, thighs, and ankles. A wound on her inner thigh, petechial hemorrhages on her cheeks, a classic sign of strangulation. The detective ignored all of it. He arrived at the autopsy with a conclusion already formed and fit the facts to match. Jamie filed official complaints. For 4 months, bureaucracy ground through her request while her daughter's killer walked free. While the system ignored her, Jamie found another path, social media. She'd never used TikTok before. But she thought if April could reach 200,000 people through short videos, maybe she could too. She started posting, telling April's story, explaining why she didn't believe the suicide verdict, asking people to share, spread the word, pressure police. It worked. People listened. People supported her. But it also drew Donovan's attention. In April 2024, Jamie was hit with a gag order. Donovan hired a lawyer. The court ruled if Jamie continued speaking publicly about April and the case, she'd lose visitation rights with Denzel. Donovan was using the child as leverage. Stay quiet or lose your grandson. Jamie went silent publicly, but behind the scenes, she kept digging. 2 to 3 hours every day, studying case documents, looking for inconsistencies. And she found what police had missed. In a 47-page report, there was one paragraph, easy to overlook unless you knew what to look for. Fingerprints were found on the tape wrapped around April's neck. 2 prints, clear and identifiable. They belonged to Donovan Holt. Police knew this, and still closed the case as suicide. Their explanation? Donovan said he was removing the tape from April's neck when he found her. That's why his prints were there. But think about it. If you find your wife unconscious with a bag on her head, you rip that bag off. You don't carefully peel away tape, leaving clean prints. You tear, you panic. And if April put on the bag and wrapped the tape herself, where were her fingerprints? They weren't there. Only Donovan's prints were on the tape. Only his. June 2024. Almost a year since April's death. Jamie made a decision. She wasn't waiting for the system anymore. She'd do this herself. She sent Donovan a message, a screenshot from the report about the fingerprints, and 2 options. Option A, tell me the truth. Option B, I take this to the cold case unit. Donovan chose option A. He called her hours later, video call, asked if she was alone. Jamie said yes. She didn't mention that Serenity's phone was nearby, recording every word. Tennessee is a one-party consent state. Only one person in a conversation needs to know about the recording. Jamie knew. That was enough. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. Donovan told her everything. He said that morning they were having sex, it got rough, he was choking her, and she stopped breathing. He panicked, didn't know what to do, dragged her to the shower, put the bag on her head, wrapped the tape, then came out of the bathroom, made lunch, ate with his son, got him dressed, then sent his 7-year-old to check on mom. Jamie listened to this, listened to the man who killed her daughter, describe it calmly for 47 minutes. She didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't hang up. She knew if she lost control, he'd stop talking. She needed everything, every word, every detail. She'd later say, "This was only possible with God's help, through the Spirit. Otherwise, I couldn't have done it." Jamie didn't believe the sex gone wrong story. Why did he have a bag and tape in the bathroom? Who brings trash bags and duct tape to sex? Why, if it was an accident, didn't he start CPR, call 911 immediately? Why did he drag her to the shower and wrap her head in a bag? And another detail Jamie learned later, 3 days before her death, April was sexually assaulted. Not by Donovan, by another man, a client. The assault was serious enough that April went to the hospital the next day. 3 days later, she supposedly consented to rough sex with the husband she was leaving. No. Jamie didn't believe it, and nobody should. Jamie's version, supported by her grandson's account, Donovan and April argued in the bathroom. It turned physical. Donovan strangled her, intentionally or in rage, then staged it as suicide, and sent his own son to find the body. With the recorded confession, Jamie went to police, this time to the cold case unit. Different detectives, they listened to the recording, 47 minutes of Donovan Holt describing in his own words how he killed his wife. This time, police didn't dismiss her. In July 2024, the case was officially reopened. Cold case detectives contacted Donovan, and he repeated his confession to them, officially, on the record. On September 20th, 2024, Donovan Holt was arrested in San Antonio, Texas. He was extradited to Tennessee and held on $75,000 bail. 14 months. 14 months of fighting, sleepless nights, bureaucratic walls, being ignored and humiliated. 14 months while her daughter's killer lived free, raised her grandson, slept peacefully, and now handcuffs. In September 2024, another quiet but crucial development. The medical examiner's office revised April Lynn Holt's death certificate. The manner of death was changed from suicide to homicide. Officially documented, permanent. April didn't kill herself. April was murdered. For Jamie, this meant more than the arrest. It meant her daughter's name was cleared. The story police tried to push of a broken woman who chose death was erased, replaced with truth. April was a victim, not a suicide statistic. The grand jury indicted Donovan Holt on 3 charges: reckless homicide, filing a false report, and tampering with evidence. Jamie isn't satisfied with the charges. Reckless homicide? That's a charge for someone who accidentally hits a pedestrian, not for someone who strangled his wife, staged a suicide, and sent his child to find the body. Jamie wants the charges upgraded to first-degree murder, premeditated, with aggravating circumstances. She also wants child endangerment added. Donovan didn't just kill April, he made his son complicit in the cover-up. He traumatized a 7-year-old boy in a way he'll carry for life. There's another victory worth mentioning. The day of Donovan's arrest, Jamie was granted full custody of Denzel. For a full year, from July 2023 to September 2024, the boy lived with his father, with the man who killed his mother, with the man who made him find her body. The court gave a child to a killer because, officially, there was no murder, just suicide. And a father has rights to his son. Jamie saw her grandson once a month, supervised, scheduled, restricted. She described how Denzel would cry when taken back to his father, how he'd cling to her and beg, "Please do something. I want to stay with you." Now Denzel is home, with serenity, with the grandparents who love him the way they loved his mom. Jamie didn't stop at fighting for her daughter's justice. She went further. She wrote a book, Grieving Through Grace, a memoir about grief, about losing a child, about finding light in darkness. All proceeds go to charity. With Serenity, she wrote a children's book about grief called Grieve With Me. She's opening a grief support center with the same name, offering free resources, teen support groups, art therapy, a quiet place to be among people who understand. Jamie wants to change emergency response protocols. When someone is found unconscious and there's a partner or spouse present, police should be called automatically, not 6 hours later. Not at a family member's request, immediately. She wants to change autopsy procedures. Detectives shouldn't attend autopsies and provide context to medical examiners. Autopsies should be purely medical, facts separate from theories. April Lynn Holt is buried near the church where she worked with her mother, where she planned to grow in ministry, where she was supposed to be the day after her death. Jamie visits her, talks to her, watches her TikTok videos to hear her daughter's voice. She misses her every day, every hour, every minute. But she didn't break. She turned her grief into fuel, her pain into action, her love into justice. April was light. She walked into a room and made it brighter. She talked to people and made them feel heard. Now her mother carries that light for her, instead of her, because of her. Donovan Holt awaits trial. The charges may be upgraded, justice may be complete, or it may not. But one thing is certain, April is not forgotten. Her story has been told, her name has been cleared, and her mother, Jamie Dickerson, did the impossible. She proved a murder that police refused to see. Alone.